All right, so let's talk minimum wage. What a Democrat or a liberal would like you to believe is that minimum wage is out there to help the poor and the needy by suggesting that what they've effectively done by implementing a minimum wage is to say that anybody that is potentially getting $4 or $5 an hour now suddenly magically is going to get $7.25 an hour, which is the new federal minimum wage. Clearly, that's not what happens because obviously, when somebody's labor artificially gets increased by the tune of 30% or more, that business owner now has to do something about that, which is either decrease the amount of workers, if or they can increase their pricing, or they can increase their demand. Now, in the case of increasing the demand, they have very little control over that, other than perhaps maybe advertising some more, trying to get some more business to be able to boost their profits by boosting the total sales for their organization. In terms of raising the prices, let's say, for example, that it's a company that manufactures canned vegetables, and in order for them to pay for the new minimum wage law increase, they have to increase the cost of those vegetables by 10% or 15%. The funny thing about that particular example is that canned vegetables are probably the staple for many people that are working for a low wage because they're relatively inexpensive. And so in that case, the person making $7 an hour now is able to, in theory, purchase more. But most of the products that they need to actually survive on a day-to-day basis are produced by people in similar positions, and therefore the prices of those goods are likely to increase along with the minimum wage. Now let's talk just a little bit about the employment side of things. I, as an employer, could decide to take my business elsewhere, overseas. I could reduce my workforce. And so in the case where minimum wage would go from $5 an hour to $7 an hour, or $7.50, there's a very real scenario that many people are laid off and are unable to be hired because the businesses just can't afford it. But let's talk a little bit about what minimum wage actually means to the business owner and to the employee. So what minimum wage says is that it is effectively illegal for me as a business owner to hire somebody at less than the $7.25. That sounds very good. It brings a warm feeling to you when you hear somebody say that that evil business can't hire people for under $7.25. But what you need to do is spin it around on the employee, which says if I in fact am not very marketable, perhaps I have some criminal past, perhaps I have some issues, perhaps I'm just lacking all experience in the particular field that I'm trying to get hired in. What this law has effectively said is that even in a trial basis or an entry-level position, it is illegal for me to find a position in the market that would be worth less than $7.25 an hour. Milton Friedman talks very much about the charity aspect of it, and that people are allowed to engage in charity, but we'll forgo that discussion for now. So I drew a little diagram which would represent perhaps a college student or maybe a high school student, and they're going to in a world without minimum wage, they're going to start at the age of 15 by working at a restaurant, and their sole job is to open and shut the door. They have no prior experience, they have no prior work ethic, they have no history to go by, and so the business owner is willing to take a risk on that person and have them do a very simple job, open and close the door. To the business owner, that job is effectively worth, we'll say, $2.50 an hour. And in a minimum wage system, that would be illegal. Therefore, that person would remain unemployed. But without minimum wage, that person is able to be employed. And while opening and closing the door, What that person is able to do is gain experience, gain history with the employer, as well as examine the other people in the restaurant that are doing positions that perhaps he could do eventually, or let's call it a store, in the sense that maybe the step up from being a door opener is to package up the items that the people are purchasing, and the step up from that is actually moving into a sales position. So without minimum wage, what a person's allowed to do is enter the market at a very entry-level position, but as a result of being paid $2.50, there's an untold gratuity or an untold income there, which is the experience they gain by being in the marketplace, by building that trust, by observing people in the higher level positions. And so in May of 2010, perhaps somebody starts and they are the door opener. But by August, they've proven that they can be there on time. They've proven that they've observed the packagers. They've observed the people leaving the building with properly packaged items. And so the business owner decides to give them a raise to $5 an hour in order to maybe be a part-time packager. Eventually, they become a full-time packager. And as a packager, they're able to examine the salespeople in the workplace, to examine how they sell products, what products they sell, what sort of techniques are allowed. And so even though he's still being paid under minimum wage, what he's done is gained experience first as a door opener, then as a packager, and now he's learning experience to be the salesperson. Eventually, we'll say in November of 2010, the business owner has a bad day, somebody quits, needs this person to fill in for a sales position, gives him an opportunity. This person succeeds because they've been on the job, they have a history with the employer, they have a history with the customers, they know the sales activity, they've monitored that, and ultimately eventually moves into that position and starts earning $8 a share. So that's actually allowed in a system where there is no minimum wage. In this exact same scenario, without a minimum wage, first of all, in the scenario where there's one person door opening, one person packaging, and one person sales, there's a good chance that in a minimum wage society that those first two positions would never be filled, or perhaps would be filled by one person that would be both doing door opening and packaging for the bare minimum $7.25 an hour. But they're running around back and forth and they don't have time to learn any of the sales experience. So in a minimum wage society, what's happened is one or two jobs are actually lost, but a high school student in this case has no ability to learn the business, to gain the trust of the business owner, to understand the business, understand the customers, or gain experience. And so for him to move into a sales position is almost entirely impossible. Bottom line, the minimum wage law, which was supposed to go into effect to help the poor, to help the less fortunate, to help the unskilled, has actually had the opposite effect. And in this example has actually meant two people are unemployed, and the entry-level position is to remain unfilled because people do not have the opportunity to actually learn the skills required in order to gain that skills position or that sales position.